Hey guys, tonight we're heading back to a time so outrageously bizarre it makes your last family reunion look like a meditation retreat. We're dusting off a forgotten slice of American history, the 1910s, an era when millions of kids were full-time chain smokers. Yes, actual children, armed with hope, dreams, and completely unfiltered lucky strikes. If you've ever wondered how chaotic life could get before TikTok, buckle up. This is a journey into a world where your average 8-year-old could outsmoke your Uncle Dave, and smoking kills was basically a friendly suggestion. But before we spark up this topic, do me a quick favor. Like the video and subscribe, but only if this strange little corner of YouTube actually brings you joy. Drop a comment too. Tell me what you're doing right now. Folding laundry, staring at the ceiling, hiding in the bathroom from your own kids. Whatever it is, glad you're here. Now dim the lights, turn on a fan for that soft, nicotine-free white noise, and get cozy. If you really want to commit, drape an old coat over your chair for that authentic turn-of-the-century vibe. Now let's pause. Have you ever wondered what it really felt like to be a child in 1910s America? Did kids seriously light up before math class? Was smoking considered cool, or just a desperate attempt to avoid cabbage soup again? Could you get grounded for not finishing your cigarette? Did parents care, or were they too busy coughing themselves into a new tax bracket? And would your classmates judge you for smoking menthols, or was that strictly for the fancy city kids? Well, congratulations. You just woken up in 1912. You're 8 years old, you already have a job, and someone just handed you a cigarette with your breakfast. Good luck. The day starts before the sun comes up, and so does your first smoke. You rub your eyes, cough out last night's coal dust, and your mom hands you a half-finished cigarette to shake off the cobwebs. Breakfast of champions, or, more accurately, breakfast of bronchitis. The bedroom is already thick with haze, the sort of air that feels like you're living inside a chimney. The wallpapers are fading yellow, not from age or style, but because it's been marinated in decades of secondhand smoke and questionable life choices. The faint sound of a rooster crowing is almost drowned out by your father's morning cough, which is honestly more consistent than any alarm clock. Your siblings are up too, eyes barely open, each holding a cigarette with a casual half-asleep elegance of a jazz musician after a 2 a.m. gig. The sheets are scratchy, the air is dry, and everything smells faintly of burnt tobacco, old socks, and a kind of hope you can only muster if you've never heard the word carcinogen. Your mother fusses with the coffee pot on the stove, her own cigarette dangling from the corner of her mouth, ash barely clinging to the end. Up and at 'em, she says, voice but cheerful, as if nothing says good morning like a shot of caffeine and a puff of whatever brand was on sale that week. The house isn't just smoky, it's built for it. Ashtrays line every flat surface like tiny gray monuments to endurance. There's a small tin by the bed, another on the kitchen table, and at least 3 in the living room. Some are full, some are overflowing. All are judged only by how close they are to catching fire. You slide out of bed, bare feet hitting the cold linoleum. The floor is sticky in some spots, and you wonder for a brief moment if that's spilled molasses or just decades of nicotine resin. Best not to ask out the window. Dawn is just beginning to break over a row of brick houses, each one with its own plume of smoke rising from the chimney. And you suspect from the kitchen. Too, in the 1910s, fresh air is less of a concept and more of a rumor. You inhale deeply, cough, and your brother slaps to you on the back in solidarity. Don't worry, he says. The first one always hits the hardest. He's 7. He's got a point. You shuffle to the kitchen, eyes stinging, mouth dry, and take a seat at the table where breakfast is already underway. On your plate, burnt toast, a questionable egg, and of course, your morning smoke. The radio's crackling with static and jazz, and a friendly ad comes on. Start your day the healthy way with a lucky strike. Your mom nods approvingly. Doctor says it's good for your nerves. The family dog pads into the room, tail wagging, and curls up under the table. Even the dog smells like tobacco, a walking ashtray in fur. The kids squabble over the comics page, and your little sister lights her own cigarette with a practiced flick. She's 5. You try not to cough again. Coughing too much marks you as a rookie, and you've got a reputation to maintain. There's a warmth in the kitchen, but it isn't just from the stove. It's from the sense of routine. The way everyone accepts that this is simply how the day begins, with a deep breath, a little banter, and a lot of smoke. Outside, the neighbors' kids are already gathered at the corner, each with a cigarette dangling from their lips, practicing smoke rings and pretending to be grown-ups. You take your last drag, stub out the cigarette, and stand up, heart fluttering and lungs buzzing like a beehive. The world is waking up, and so are you. One puff at a time. In the 1910s, childhood is short, mornings are long, and nothing gets you ready for a hard day of work or school like the gentle encouragement of a parent saying, "Hurry up now. You'll be late, and don't forget your matches." It's going to be another smoky, bustling, absurdly normal day, and it's only just begun. You shuffle to the one-room schoolhouse. Kids are clustered behind the outhouse, trading hand-rolled cigarettes instead of marbles. The teacher smokes, too, sometimes during lessons. The blackboard is just as likely to be wiped with an old rag as with the back of her nicotine-stained hand. School in the 1910s isn't so much a place of higher learning as it is a smoky waiting room for adulthood. The outside air is cold and brisk, but the air behind the schoolhouse is warm with camaraderie and secondhand smoke. The bell rings, echoing down the muddy street, and you and your classmates hurriedly finish your cigarettes before stubbing them out behind a suspiciously blackened patch of earth. That's not a fire hazard. That's just math class prep. Inside, the smell is legendary. There's a kind of perfume that only comes from old wood, chalk dust, and a century's worth of tobacco. The walls are covered in spelling rules, faded wanted posters for runaway goats, and just above the teacher's desk, a hand-painted sign: no spitting, no running, no smoking during recitation. You notice it's been there a while. Nobody takes it seriously, not even the teacher. Your desk is tiny, scarred with initials, and a few old burns from dropped cigarette embers. You slide into your seat as the teacher, Mrs. Henderson, sails into the room in a cloud of palm and lavender. She sets her cigarette in the groove she's carved into the edge of her desk, takes up the attendance book, and calls your name while absent-mindedly tapping ash into the inkwell. If you don't answer right away, she'll just glance up, squint through the smoke, and call you the quiet one. This is not a compliment. The morning lesson begins. Penmanship, arithmetic, and the occasional coughing fit from the kid in the second row who claims it helps him concentrate. There's no need for hall pass if you want to step outside for a smoke. Just raise your hand and say you need fresh air, which is code for "I need a cigarette," and "I'm only 7, but don't judge me." The teacher will wave you out, barely breaking stride on her multiplication tables. And sometimes she'll ask you to bring her matches on your way back in. School supplies are different here. There's chalk, a handful of chewed pencils, and a secret stash of rolling papers tucked under the loose floorboard near the back. The class pet isn't a hamster. It's the ashtray passed around whenever anyone needs it. You'd think there would be discipline for this sort of thing, but honestly, as long as nobody sets the curtains on fire, it's all considered part of character building. The principal sometimes stops by, spots the smoke, and just asks if anyone's seen his lighter. Lunchtime rolls around, and the playground erupts in a cloud of energy and tobacco. Some kids climb trees, others play tag, and the rest organize a contest to see who can blow smoke rings big enough to fit a marble through. The girls are just as involved as the boys. Equality in its purest, most wheezy form. You trade half a sandwich for a handful of loose tobacco. It's the closest thing to a stock market anyone here will ever see. Back in class, the afternoon sunlight slants through the dirty windows, turning the floating smoke into golden beams. You squint at your workbook, struggling to add fractions while the kid beside you offers you a drag for luck. Occasionally, misses. Henderson leans out the window to dump the contents of her ashtray into the yard, where it immediately becomes part of the school's ongoing compost experiment. When the final bell rings, you file out pockets stuffed with homework and maybe a couple of borrowed cigarettes from your friend Billy. School in the 1910s isn't about memorizing facts or passing tests. It's about surviving the day, earning a little respect, and learning how to blow the perfect smoke ring before you turn 12. You leave the schoolyard coughing, laughing, and a little bit wiser in the ways of the world. A world where even education comes with a complimentary ashtray and a lesson in peer pressure you'll never forget. At 10, you're already on your third job. The factory foreman doesn't care about your reading level. He cares if you can roll, light, and inhale without passing out. You smoke? Good. You'll fit right in. Now grab a shovel. Job interviews in the 1910s aren't exactly what your modern career coach would recommend. Forget LinkedIn profiles and firm handshakes. Here, the only networking that matters happens over a battered tin of loose tobacco and a shared match. You walk in with your shirt tucked in, sort of shoes scuffed, and lungs already braced for whatever is about to happen. The waiting room. It's a lineup of other kids and a few wiry adults, all chain smoking with the seasoned professionalism of people twice their age. The ashtrays overflow, and the air is thick enough to slice and serve at lunch. The foreman, Mr. Mulligan, sits behind a desk the color of old gravy, leafing through a stack of paperwork he clearly has no intention of reading. He sizes you up not by your resume, but by the telltale yellow on your fingertips and whether you can flick ash without flinching. You clear your throat, but he's already asking the only questions that matter. You roll your own. You know how to keep it lit in the wind. You nod with the confidence of someone who's been inhaling since he was old enough to spell tar. You demonstrate your rolling skills. And by the time you're done, half the room is watching with respect. Someone claps. You're basically hired. There's a short practical exam. You're handed a shovel and told to move a mountain of coal from one side of the room to the other. No breaks, except of course for smoke breaks. These are non-negotiable and in fact mandatory. Every 20 minutes, the foreman yells, "Smoke them if you got them." And everyone lines up along the nearest wall, cigarettes dangling, sharing stories about who's got the best brand and who's already managed to burn a hole in their overalls. Lunch is a chaotic affair. There's a pot of stew on the back burner, half a loaf of bread, and an entire drawer dedicated to rolling papers. The adults discuss serious topics, unionizing, wages, and how to get the best deal on a carton. The kids, they mostly trade smokes and cough artistically. If you don't have a cough by now, you're clearly not working hard enough. Or worse, you're a narc. Nobody wants to be the kid with the clean lungs. Your new coworkers welcome you by passing around a fresh pack and giving you tips on avoiding the supervisor's bad side. He hates when you ash in the gears, someone warns. But if you give him a cigarette, he'll forget what he was mad about. Job security in 1910s America, built on nicotine and selective memory. By mid-afternoon, your clothes are dusted with soot. Your fingers smell like a mix of coal, sweat, and old gold, and your lungs feel like you've run a marathon inside a fireplace. Still, there's camaraderie here, a weird smoky brotherhood forged in the mind, fires of shared misery and shared matches. When you catch your breath, or try to, you can't help but notice the pride in the older boys' faces when they light up and exhale a perfect smoke ring, as if it's the only job skill that will really matter when you're promoted to junior shift supervisor, a role that comes with extra rations and an engraved ashtray. As the whistle blows at quitting time, everyone crowds the exit for one last cigarette before home. You collect your day's pay, a few coins, and more importantly, a handful of loose cigarettes for the road. The walk home is a procession of kids, each trailing their own little cloud, feeling a strange sense of accomplishment. You survived another day. You nailed your interview. And most importantly, you proved you can inhale with the best of them. In the 1910s, that's pretty much all anyone's looking for. And tomorrow, well, Tomorrow you might even get promoted. If you can just remember not to ash in the boss's lunch pail, forget orange juice and oatmeal. Breakfast is weak coffee, burnt toast, and if you're lucky, a government-issued cigarette. The cereal mascot is a mustached man winking over a pack of Chesterfields. You shuffle into the kitchen, eyes still half shut, as the smell of brewing coffee blends seamlessly with the gentle haze of last night's smoke. The sunlight filters in through grimy lace curtains, illuminating floating mows of ash, as if you've wandered into a particularly budget version of Narnia. At the kitchen table, your father is already on his second cup and his third cigarette. "Eat up, kid," he says, exhaling a cloud across your plate. "You'll need your energy." Your breakfast options are simple. Black coffee that tastes like the inside of a railroad tie, a slab of toast toasted only on one side, and sitting next to the knife, a perfectly respectable cigarette already half-lit, because mom preps them just the way you like. The radio chirps in the background with an ad jingle. Chesterfields, the morning pick-me-up for the whole family. Nobody blinks. The only crunch at the table is from the burnt edge of your bread and the delicate sound of someone tapping their ash into the communal saucer. You eat in silence, occasionally punctuated by hacking coughs and the sound of a match striking. Your older brother, home from a night shift to the mill, rolls out of bed, wraps himself in a threadbare robe, and grabs a mug. Past the smokes, he mutters, not even bothering to ask for butter. Even the family cat sits on the windowsill, tail twitching, squinting through the haze like he's seen it all before and probably has. Every food item on the table has a faint aroma of tobacco. The jam tastes a little like menthol, the butter a hint of pipe smoke. There's a sticky jar of marmalade, possibly left over from the last time someone bought fruit, but it's mostly there to hold down the morning paper. And the paper itself plastered with full-page ads for the latest doctor-recommended blend. For healthy lungs and cheerful mornings, smoke a Lucky. Your father nods approvingly, as if modern medicine couldn't possibly lead you wrong. If you're really living large, someone breaks out a box of cereal cornflakes, but with a smiling mustachioed cartoon character who winks knowingly while puffing away. Inside the box, the prize isn't a plastic toy, but a collectible card featuring famous smokers of history. Maybe you'll get President Taft, or if you're really lucky, a card for the local police chief, pipe in hand, enforcing justice and good oral fixation. Family conversation is light, filtered through nicotine and a sense of communal survival. Mom asks if you finish your homework. You lie and say yes, distracted by the art of trying to blow smoke rings into your coffee. Your little sister demands the comics page and a drag from your cigarette. She's 6. She's got a lot to learn, but she's coming along. Somewhere outside, the neighbor's car backfires, sending a plume of exhaust up the street. The dog barks, your father coughs, and the radio starts in again. 4 out of 5 doctors choose Camels for their own families. You sip your coffee, flick your ashes, and wonder if the 5th doctor was simply ahead of his time or just not invited to the breakfast table. Eventually, it's time to leave for school, your breath smelling faintly of burnt toast and last season's tobacco crop. Your pockets are full, not with apples or lunch money, but with a couple of loose cigarettes and a pack of matches, just in case you need a little pick-me-up before math class. Breakfast is done, but the day is just beginning, and you step out into the morning feeling as balanced as a kid can, fueled by caffeine, carbohydrates, and a whole lot of advertising. The world is waiting, and so is your next smoke. It's the most important meal of the day. Just don't forget your lighter. Every street corner has a sign promising health, vitality, sophisticated coughs. Tobacco companies sponsor baseball teams for the under-12 elves and hand out trading cards with every pack. Collect all 5 and maybe win a coupon for new lungs. Walking to school, you pass a billboard the size of your entire house. On it, a cartoon cowboy, let's call him the Malbur Man Jr., tips his hat at you with a grin so wide you can practically hear his gums riding a horse, lassoing the sun, and holding a cigarette like it's the key to self-esteem underneath him in bold, cheerful letters. Start young, start strong. It's less of an advertisement and more of a spiritual directive. As you stroll down Main Street, the marketing only gets more intense. Shop windows feature smiling children in neatly pressed overalls, taking gentle, wholesome puffs between slices of apple pie. A poster taped to the barber's window shows a doctor, stethoscope, and all, encouraging kids to grow up tall with Lucky Strike. You're starting to suspect physicians of this era have very different priorities. At the soda fountain, there's a standee shaped like a baseball player mid-swing. A cigarette tucked behind his ear like a signature accessory. Hit a home run with old gold. It reads, "You don't know much about science, but you're pretty sure smoking mid-aim doesn't make you run faster." Still, who are you to argue with a cardboard athlete living his best fictional life? The tobacco companies don't just advertise, they infiltrate. Every kid on the block participates in the Chesterfield Champs League. The baseball organization, proudly funded by the fine folks selling lung fog in neat little packs. Your uniform, a wool shirt with a tasteful cigarette logo plastered across the chest, as if you're a tiny NASCAR driver with emotional baggage. The team even has a mascot, a chipper little cigarette with legs wearing sneakers and a big smile. You tell yourself it's not creepy. You lie. During games, the announcer at the local diamond shouts, "This inning brought to you by Camel. Smooth taste, smooth swing." You're not sure if inhaling deeply before running the bases is good for your athletic performance, but it does give you something to lean on when you inevitably get winded. And then there are the trading cards. Each pack of cigarettes comes with one tucked in like a precious prize. Your collection is impressive. Sammy 3, Puff Malone, Rosie Redlungs, Benny the Breathless Bullet, or Rock. These fictional idols stare back at you with a kind of weathered charm, usually reserved for retired sailors. The cards even have stats on the back. Favorite smoke, menthol. Number of packs per day, 6. Special skill, coughing hard enough to rattle windows. Heroes, every one of them. The ads follow you into the classroom. Your school's reading posters show tiny children at their desks, book in one hand, cigarette in the other, smoke drifting like the world's saddest thought bubble. You once raised your hand to ask if reading near open flame was safe, and your teacher simply said it builds character before lighting another one at her desk. Even toys aren't off the hook. In the store, you've seen My First Lighter, a playset complete with wooden matches, and a booklet of kid-friendly smoke tricks. There's also a doll called Cindy the Sophisticate, who comes with a tiny faux fur stole, a purse, and a cigarette molded permanently into her plastic fingers. The box proudly proclaims, "She really pretends to inhale." By the time you head home at dusk, the whole world feels like one giant advertisement, gently coercing you toward a lifetime of smoking-induced adulthood. But you're a kid of the 1910s. You don't question it. You don't resist it. You just breathe it in literally and figuratively and collect your trading cards like the loyal little customer you are. Because in this era, childhood isn't just marketed to. Childhood is the marketing plan. And Mauro Man Jr. is always watching, always smiling, and always ready to tip his hat and welcome you to the club. "Smoke for your health," shouts the newspaper. Your doctor's office smells like an ashtray. And there's a poster encouraging mothers to be to lighten the nerves with a Camel. If you're nervous for your spelling test, Doc might offer you a free sample. The waiting room is a haze of secondhand optimism and tobacco. You sit on a vinyl chair that squeaks with every movement, flipping through a dog-eared magazine full of ads for doctor-tested smokes and patent tonics. Every page, every corner, every available surface plastered with medical endorsements for cigarettes. There's an ad with a kindly old physician holding a stethoscope in one hand and a lit cigarette in the other, beaming like he's about to recommend 2 puffs and a glass of milk for a strong immune system. The nurse calls your name, her voice grawly in a way that suggests she too has never turned down a Chesterfield. You follow her past a glass jar of tongue depressors right next to a matching jar of sample cigarettes. Take one for the road. Why not? The doctor greets you with a handshake and a puff of smoke that could set off the fire alarm, if such a thing existed. He's got the look of a man who has seen it all and smoked half of it. Feeling a little anxious, are we? He says as he lights a fresh cigarette and offers you one with the same casual air as someone offering a child stick of gum. You shake your head politely. After all, you already had two before breakfast, but he insists helps with the nerves. I always say a calm mind is a healthy mind. You sit on the exam table, paper crinkling beneath you, the smell of antiseptic barely clinging to life beneath the dominant aroma of burned tobacco. On the wall is a cheerful sign. Ask your doctor about Lucky Strikes, America's favorite soothing cigarette. Another poster shows a glowing review from the American Association of Peaceful Lungs, which you're pretty sure is just the tobacco company's marketing department in a fake mustache. Your mom's sitting in the corner, nods along. She's here for her annual checkup, which mostly consists of the doctor listening to her chest with a stethoscope, then declaring her in excellent health for a smoker. He recommends she cut back to half a pack a day during pregnancy. Everything in moderation, he says, winking, except of course for good cheer and fine tobacco. If you're a little fidgety, maybe nervous about the spelling bee, maybe just restless from all the nicotine, he might suggest you take up pipe smoking. It's more contemplative, he says. Very good for focusing the mind. Just ask young Billy down the street. Won the county arithmetic prize and never seen without his corncob pipe. The medicine cabinet is a surreal time capsule. There are pills for colds, bottles of cough syrup containing so much alcohol you're surprised people don't stumble out of here. And of course, promotional packs of cigarettes with RX printed on the wrapper. Doctor's orders, says the label. The only thing healthier, the doctor claims, would be a brisk walk, and even that is best enjoyed with a nice cigar. Every visit ends with a little pep talk about building lung strength and keeping the pipes clean. You wonder if anyone's pipes have ever been this clean. Given the frequency with which everyone is scrubbing them with smoke, still there's a certain comfort in the ritual. The doctor's calm confidence, the way he expertly blows smoke rings that hover in the air like gentle reminders of his medical wisdom. You leave the office clutching a lollipop, a prescription, and of course, a complimentary pack of cigarettes for good measure. As you step into the street, the world feels a little lighter. Your nerves soothed by the knowledge that the smartest man in town is on your side. Cigarette in hand. After all, if the pros doctor says it's healthy, who are you to argue? Light up, breathe easy, and prepare for the next big spelling test. That's science. 1910 style. Parents scold you for running in the house, but encourage you to smoke. It builds character, says Dad, exhaling a cloud so thick you can't see his mustache. If you cough, you're told to man up. If you don't cough, you're clearly not inhaling right. The contradictions start early and pile up faster than the ash in the kitchen spittoon. 1 minute you're being yelled at for tracking mud across the clean linoleum. The next you're being handed a cigarette and told it's a rite of passage. Mom waves a wooden spoon for you to sit up straight, brush your teeth, and for heaven's sake, don't forget your matches. No shoes in the living room, but please light up before company arrives. The house should smell homey. Dad, of course, is the household philosopher on all things character building. He lectures on the value of hard work, respect, and a strong puff. Nothing teaches discipline like rolling your own, he explains, demonstrating the wrist flick passed down through generations. If you get it wrong, he offers advice in the tone usually reserved for family emergencies. Don't pack it too tight, son. And don't drop ashes on the good rug. Even the grandparents chime in. Grandpa says his first cigarette was at age 5, back when you had to fight a chicken for the matches. He survived a Spanish flu and 2 farming accidents. So you don't question his wisdom. Grandma, meanwhile, demands you take your shoes off at the door, then hands you a cigar for helping with the groceries. It's medicinal, she insists, winking and pressing a peppermint into your palm as a chaser. Discipline is a patchwork of rules, some strict, some astonishingly relaxed. Homework must be done before dinner, but if you finish early, you can join Dad on the porch for an after-school special. One lucky strike, and a lecture on why real men use Zippos. If you're caught sneaking cookies, it's double chores for a week. If you're caught sneaking smokes, you get a gentle reminder to use the family ashtray and not hide what's behind the barn. Meals are a masterclass in mixed messages. Eat your vegetables, Mom insists, so you'll grow up strong. But if you refuse a cigarette after meatloaf, you get a suspicious glance. You feeling all right? She asks, already worried about your constitution. A good smoke helps with digestion. Dad backs her up, waving his fork for emphasis, then sending you out to walk it off with a Chesterfield. Sibling rivalry. It's not about toys or grades, but who can hold a drag the longest or blow the biggest smoke ring. Your older sister, expert in both etiquette and exhalation, always wins family contests. You'll get it, kid, she says. Just remember, don't waste good tobacco and never ever let the dog near your matches. When you finally go to bed, the contradictions follow you under the covers. Brush your teeth for 2 full minutes, but only after one last smoke and a mug of cocoa. Say your prayers and leave your slippers by the door, but don't forget to empty your ashtray. The house is quiet except for the distant clinking of glasses and the soft hum of satisfied coughs. The parent paradox is as American as apple pie and as smoky as Sunday supper. The rules may seem absurd, but there's a weird kind of comfort in their predictability. After all, in a world where running is forbidden, but smoking is mandatory, you learn to move slowly, breathe deeply, and never question the logic, at least not out loud. You drift off to sleep, lungs tingling, mind swirling with parental advice, both stern and softly absurd. Tomorrow you'll run when you shouldn't and smoke when you're told. All in the name of character. And of course, don't forget your matches. Recess is less about dodgeball and more about who can make the best smoke rings. The cool kids aren't sharing gum. They're swapping matches and tips on the fastest way to sneak a puff before the bell rings. You step onto the playground and instantly spot the usual social structure. There's the swing set crew, the seesaw syndicate, and reigning supreme. The circle of kids by the big oak tree. These aren't just any kids. These are the ring masters. The ones who can blow smoke hoops through each other's circles like a circus act gone airy. Their fingers are stained, their grins are sly, and their backpacks are loaded not with homework, but with rolling papers and half-empty matchbooks. The playground smells like scorched earth and overcooked toast with a hint of desperation and cool water cologne. There's a cluster of boys crouched behind the slide, perfecting the double dragon puff. A move so advanced it's rumored the principal once tried it and had to lie down for the rest of the afternoon. Off by the teeter-totter, 2 girls are trading cigarettes for secrets, giggling as they practice French inhaling, which just means blowing smoke out your nose and pretending you're Parisian instead of 8. And in Indiana, the old game of who can hang the longest from the monkey bars has been replaced with who can keep a cigarette lit while spinning on a merry-go-round. It's a challenge that requires balance, bravery, and the ability to ignore the laws of both physics and good judgment. Every so often, someone shouts, "Teacher," and the group scatters, smoke trails drifting behind them like the world's least efficient camouflage. You sidle up to the hopscotch grid, but even that's been co-opted. The squares now serve as a meeting place for the cigarette economy. Someone is always trying to barter. 3 matches for 1 drag. A whole smoke for a Friday's worth of lunch dessert. The stakes are high. Nobody wants to be the kid caught with only peppermint sticks when everyone else is packing Pall Malls. A scrawny kid named Tommy demonstrates his latest trick, blowing a smoke ring through the chain of the swing, perfectly timed, so it lands right in front of the line of watching kids. There are cheers, a couple of coughs, and someone hands him a fresh match as a token of respect. The teacher is nearby, nursing her own cigarette, half watching the chaos, but mostly just relieved the kids are busy and not staging a mutiny over cold pottage again. You try your hand at joining in, nervously rolling a cigarette the way your older brother showed you. Too tight, then too loose, until it looks more like a rolled-up napkin than a professional smoke. Nobody laughs, though. In this world, everyone remembers their first clumsy attempts. You get a few pointers, and soon enough, you're in the circle, learning the real playground politics. Always shield the match from the wind. Always share if you have to. And never ever steal someone else's lighter. Playground justice is swift and involve a lot of name-calling. And if you're unlucky, a public wedgie. When the bell rings, signaling the end of recess, there's a mad scramble to finish up and hide the evidence. Smokes are stubbed out in the sandbox. Matches go back in secret pockets, and everyone lines up with the kind of practiced innocence only seen in courtroom dramas. You brush off your clothes, swallow your last cough, and try to look as studious as possible, hoping nobody notices the faint wisp still curling from your hair. In the smoky battleground of the playground, victory isn't measured in points or goals, but in style, secrecy, and the ability to blow a perfect ring while dodging both authority and existential dread. Tomorrow, the games begin again, and maybe, just maybe, you'll finally land that legendary triple loop smoke ring the big kids have been talking about all year. Everyone smokes. If you say no, you'll be accused of being a baby or worse, a non-smoker. Even your little sister smokes. The family dog probably does, too. Social status is measured in puffs per minute. You wake up and the competition begins. Not just the race for the bathroom or the last piece of burnt toast, but the real race. The one to prove you're not a lightweight in a world where lung capacity is more important than your multiplication tables. The first event of the peer pressure Olympics. Synchronized lighting. You and your siblings crowd around the kitchen matchbox, striking flints in perfect time. Whoever gets their cigarette lit first gets to pick the best seat at the table. Losers sit next to Grandpa, who, despite having smoked since the Battle of Gettysburg, or so he claims, has never once shared his personal stash. It's a tough crowd out there. At school, the real cliques aren't the smart kids or the athletes. It's the chain smokers, the casual puffers, and the so-called pure lungers who, let's be honest, are just temporarily out of matches. You're judged not by your grades, but by your ability to inhale, hold, and exhale without hacking to up last night's dinner. The best kid in class can blow smoke rings that last through the Pledge of Allegiance. The worst rumor is he once tried to light his cigarette with a magnifying glass and nearly set his eyebrow on fire. Peer pressure is relentless. The moment you show hesitation, the crowd pounces. What's wrong? Billy asks, eyes narrowed. Scared of a little smoke? You shake your head and fake confidence. Nah, just saving my lungs for recess. Good save, but you'll have to prove yourself later. At recess, the games are on. It's not enough to smoke. You have to do it with flair, French inhale, double drag, or the forbidden teacher watching technique, which involves smoking behind your cooped hands and pretending you're blowing on them to stay warm. Sometimes the pressure comes from surprising places. Your best friend's mom, who smokes Virginia Slims in the kitchen, offers you a light when you come over to study. Your uncle, between puffs, gives you advice on which brands burn slowest and which ones impress girls. You find out your little sister has mastered the art of hiding a pack in her dollhouse. Even the family dog, Spud, wags his tail whenever someone opens a fresh carton. Is he expecting a treat or just a whiff of menthol? Hard to say. It's not just about being cool. It's about survival. The non-smokers get left out of secret clubs. Last pick for baseball and first pick for chores. The label sticks to you like the smell of last week's socks. Baby goody two-shoes. Or in the Krillist twist, health nut. If you try to protest, someone just shrugs and says, suit yourself more for us. You end up standing on the sidelines pretending you're deep in thought, when really, you're just trying to look mysterious and not cough from secondhand smoke. As the day goes on, the peer pressure Olympics reach their peak. There's the speed puff contest at lunch, the endurance round during study hall, and the legendary after-school relay, where kids trade cigarettes and sprint to the corner store to see who can get a fresh pack before the grown-ups notice they're missing. If you do well, you get a pat on the back, maybe even a trade for a rare baseball card or a coveted seat on the bus. If you falter, you're gently or not so gently reminded that real winners don't turn down a smoke. You finally make it home, exhausted but triumphant, lungs aching and hair smelling like a bonfire. You're not sure if you're actually enjoying any of this, but hey, social status isn't for the faint of heart. In the peer pressure Olympics, you either puff up or bow out. And tomorrow you'll be back on the starting line, ready to defend your title, one shaky inhale at a time. You work 12-hour days in a match factory. The air is so thick with smoke that you can taste yesterday's shift. The only real breaks are smoke breaks, otherwise known as all the time. You clock in before sunrise, your eyes barely open, lungs already, wheezing in anticipation. The Factos brick walls drip with condensation, and the windows are so fogged up from decades of cigarette smoke and boiled-over coffee that nobody's really sure what color the sky is outside before you even hang up your coat. A supervisor hands you a match and says, "For luck." You light up grateful, not because you need the nicotine, but because it's the only way to mask the scent of sulfur, sweat, and something suspiciously like boiled cabbage. Your coworkers are a cast of characters straight out of a Dickens novel. If Dickens had swapped all the orphans for chain smokers with growly voices and an encyclopedic knowledge of strike lighters, Old Bill, who claims to have invented the double drag, has never once been seen without a cigarette tucked behind each ear and a third in his mouth. Maggie from down the lane can roll a perfect smoke one-handed, even while sweeping sawdust and yelling at anyone who tries to skip the queue at the water pump. That the production floor is an endless symphony of clanging metal, worrying gears, and hacking coughs. There's a haze that never quite settles. Half tobacco smoke, half sawdust, and 100% occupational hazard. You'd think the match factory would be the last place to allow open flames. But safety here is more of a suggestion than a rule. Every now and then, someone shouts, "Heads up," and a lit cigarette comes sailing across the room, landing in someone's lunch pail or apron pocket. Nobody blinks. It's just another Tuesday. Work itself is a blur. Sorting sticks, dipping them in chemicals, boxing them by the thousands. The rhythm is broken only by a chorus of smoke break every 15 minutes, which really just means keep working, but light another one. The line between labor and leisure is thin here. If you can balance a box of matches, a half-rolled cigarette, and a conversation about the latest baseball scores, you're promoted to senior assembler. The main job requirement: never letting your ash fall in the wrong pile. Lunch is a quick affair, a sandwich, an apple if you're lucky, and always a cigarette for dessert. Outside the factory yard is littered with butts and footprints. There's an informal competition for who can blow the biggest smoke ring while leaning against the coal pile. The foreman, a man with a voice like a rusty hinge, paces back and forth, doling out a boys to anyone who can keep up with both the quotas and the puffs per minute average. Even the machines seem to be in on the act. The stamping press groans and wheezes, a mechanical companion to your own labored breathing. Some say the place is haunted not by ghosts, but by the ever-present cloud of old cigarette smoke, shifting and drifting between the rafters, whispering the secrets of last year's overtime. By the end of the shift, your hair, clothes, and skin are steeped in the aroma of 3 dozen tobacco blends. You taste smoke even when you sip water. Your teeth are gritty, your eyes burn, and your voice is drop an octave. But there's camaraderie here, a bond forged in nicotine, shared hardship, and an unspoken agreement that everyone is just trying to make it to quitting time with all 10 fingers and at least half a carton left. You clock out as the sun goes down, grab your coat, and light one more for the walk home. The world outside feels strangely empty without the constant background hum of hacking and laughter. You cough, sigh, and wonder how you'll ever get the smell out of your hair. The answer, of course, is simple. You won't. This is factory life. This is a smoker's paradise, and you'll do it all again tomorrow. The movie theater is a fog bank. The library tastes like Virginia tobacco. The only smoke-free space is outside when it's raining. And even then, it's just because you can't keep the matches lit. You step on a main street, a proud citizen of the 1910s, ready to face another day in a world where smoking section is a meaningless phrase and air quality is just a rumor you heard about in school. Your first stop, the matinee at the Bayview. The moment you swing open the heavy theater doors, a wall of warm, fragrant haze greets you like a favorite aunt, one who always smells like she's on fire. You can barely see the ticket taker through the blue mist, but he waves you in anyway, eyes squinting through his own cloud. Inside, the seats are filled with men, women, and kids, all politely hacking and puffing. The soft glow of cigarettes bobbing in the dark like fireflies lost in a coal mine. You squeeze into your seat and watch the light from the projector slice through layer after layer of airborne nostalgia. The previews roll, and so do the cigarette butts, tumbling down the aisles with each shift of an impatient shoe. There's no need for popcorn. The taste of every movie is already smoky. When the show's over, you stumble out, blinking against the comparatively fresh air, clothes now infused with enough tobacco scent to make you eligible for a job as a walking advertisement. But the afternoon's just begun. Next stop, the library. It's supposed to be a haven for learning, but in the 1910s, the only thing being quietly extinguished here is the will to breathe. You tiptoe past the stern librarian, who is herself enveloped in a gentle swirl of pipe smoke, as she shushes you from behind her fortress of Reader's Digests. The stacked smell of paper, ink, and decades of cigarette butts crushed between the pages by readers who couldn't decide which they loved more, literature or a good, strong drag. When you crack open a book, a small wisp of smoke escapes, like the spirit of some chain-smoking ghost forever trapped between chapters. If you get thirsty, there's a soda fountain down the street already crowded with kids and adults puffing away while sipping phosphate sodas and gossiping about the latest scandal. Like, who got caught sneaking an extra carton into the Sunday school raffle? Even church isn't safe. A good sermon is always accompanied by the gentle clicking of lighters and the sacred passing of the collection ashtray. Parks. Yes, people gather under the trees, but not for the fresh air. They're out there showing off their cigarette tricks, turning the bandstand into a stage for smoke ring competitions and quickest light in a windstorm contest. The only thing greener than the grass is the envy you feel watching someone flawlessly ignite a match with one hand, even in a stiff breeze. And when it rains, you'd think the air would clear. But all it means is a crowd of determined smokers huddled under awnings, frowning at their useless matches and swearing vengeance on the weather. You once saw a man try to light a cigar off a passing streetcar spark. It almost worked. Almost. Public transport is its own sensory adventure. The trolley car rattles along, filled with the pleasant aroma of damp wool, pipe, smoke, and unspoken grievances. You're not sure where the smoke ends and the complaints begin. The only real break you get is on the walk home in a thunderstorm. No matches, no cigarettes, just you, the rain, and the faintest hope that your lungs might remember what oxygen is supposed to taste like. But as soon as you're home, you dry off, strike a match, and the cycle begins again. In the 1910s, public spaces aren't just smoky. They're practically made of smoke, and you wouldn't have it any other way. Bring your own ashtray, or better yet, just use your pocket. Everyone else does. America's favorite pastime. Kids playing ball in an empty lot. Pockets full of bubble gum and Lucky Strikes. You chew, you spit, you smoke, you run, sometimes all at once. The umpire calls strike and lights up. The sandlot is alive with the sounds of shouts, laughter, and the sharp flick of a match. You squint through the afternoon haze, part dust, part tobacco smoke, and size up the pitcher who's balancing a baseball in one hand and a fresh cigarette in the other. He squints back, exhales, and launches the ball down the line with a flourish worthy of a vaudeville headliner. At first base, Billy is blowing the world's biggest bubble while sneaking a drag between chews. He claims the secret to his game is double bubble and double filtered, but you suspect it's just bravado and pure nicotine-fueled determination. Sally, the shortstop, has mastered the art of keeping her bubble gum on one side of her mouth and her cigarette on the other, a trick the grown-ups admire and warn her not to show off in church. Every base is surrounded by little piles of spent matches and chewed wads of gum. The outfielders have turned empty cigarette packs into makeshift cleat patches held on by optimism and the adhesive properties of weak old taffy. When a new kid wants to join the game, there's a brief but solemn ceremony. Got gum? Got a smoke? You're in. It's less about talent and more about contribution to the collective stash. The umpire, officially 12, but with the soul of a tired dock worker, puffs a Camel and keeps the peace. Every so often he calls time, not for an injury or a rule dispute, but because he needs to relight. The only real rule is no dropping ashes on home plate. That's sacred ground, mostly because it's the only patch not covered in scorched grass. Between innings, the dugout, really just a pile of overturned crates and a rotting bench, is a cloud of laughter and friendly arguments about who has the best brand. Some kids trade bubble gum for cigarettes. Others swap stories about relatives who can smoke through their nose or chew 4 sticks of gum without choking. It's a kind of commerce unique to the playground. Every deal sealed with a handshake and a puff. Occasionally, someone's older brother shows up, leans against the fence, and demonstrates a new grown-up trick, like lighting a match on the heel of his shoe or exhaling smoke rings big enough to float over second base. The crowd goes wild, impressed, jealous, and absolutely determined to master the move by next week's game. The sun sets slowly, painting the lot gold while the game carries on. No one keeping score except the kid in right field, who's actually just tallying how many smokes he can bum before dinner. As dusk falls, parents begin calling from front porches, voices echoing down the block. The game ends with a final sprint for home. Someone slides in, raises a triumphant fist, and grins with a mouthful of pink gum and a lucky strike dangling from their lips. You gather up your gear, battered glove, half chewed gum, and a pocket full of slightly squished cigarettes. Someone suggests a night game under the street lamps, but everyone knows it'll just turn into a contest to see whose smoke is brightest in the dark. You walk home with tired legs and sticky fingers, hair smelling like grass, dirt, and half the brands in the tobacco aisle. Tomorrow the lot will be empty, the grass smoldering gently under a carpet of bubble gum and cigarette butts, waiting for the next afternoon's all-star game, where the only thing more competitive than baseball is the art of blowing bubbles and smoke at the same time. And so you get ready to do it all again. America's pastimes in one hand and your next smoke in the other. Who can smoke the most in 5 minutes? Who can blow smoke out of their ears? Urban legends swirl of a kid in Ohio who smoked 20 in a row and saw God, or maybe just passed out behind the soda shop. The great tobacco stunts are the unofficial Olympics of childhood in the 1910s. You and your friends gather behind the corner store, adrenaline high and lungs ready for battle. The contestants, some seasoned, others ambitious newcomers, eye each other with a kind of intensity reserved for prize fighters and people about to eat a questionable hot dog at the county fair. The opening event is the at 9S speed puff. Someone checks the pocket watch, shouts, "Go!" and a flurry of matches erupt like fireworks. Smoke billows. Kids double fizz cigarettes, puffing so rapidly that the tip of each cigarette glows like a tiny coal-fired locomotive. Time seems to slow down, replaced by frantic counting and a background soundtrack of competitive coughing. Billy from down the street claims last summer he finished a dozen in 4 minutes and only coughed for 2 days straight. He's the reigning champion, eyes watery, but with the swagger of a man twice his age and half his lung function. This year you're determined to beat him. You grip your own pack, hand-rolled, slightly crooked, but yours and brace yourself for glory or collapse. Next up is the artful trick category. Here's where the real legends are made. Some kids can exhale smoke through their nose and mouth at the same time. Others attempt the legendary reverse waterfall, breathing smoke in through one nostril and out the other. The bravest among you try to blow smoke out of your ears. A stunt that involves so much holding your breath, squeezing your nose, and looking faintly purple that it's not clear if you're showing off or just deeply regretting your choices. An audience gathers. Kids, teenagers, even a few adults pretending they're just waiting for the bus. The pressure is on. Bets are placed. Marbles, comic books, an extra piece of bubble gum, or the prized possession, an unbroken matchbook from the fancier restaurant in town. The referee is whoever managed to swipe their dad's stopwatch. Although everyone agrees they'll fudge the numbers if someone looks like they're about to lose consciousness. Stories swirl of legendary feats. The kid who smoked a whole pack while skipping rope, or Susie Miller, who once lit 5 cigarettes at once and blew a smoke ring so big it scared the mayor's horse. The king of urban legend, though, is Tommy Iron Lungs Johnson, rumored to have smoked 20 in a row and briefly communed with higher powers, although others say he just fell asleep and drooled on the pavement for an hour. Danger is all part of the thrill. You'll burn your eyebrows off, warn someone's older brother. You'll turn green and explode, yells another. The warnings are part of the ritual. It's not a real stunt until at least 3 kids declare they heard about someone who nearly died attempting it. When the stunts are over, the crowd erupts in applause. Applause tinged with the sound of phlegmy hacking and the occasional plea for water. There's no trophy, just the glory of surviving, and if you're lucky, a new nickname. You feel triumphant, part champion, part chemistry experiment. Your throat burns, your eyes water, and your voice is suddenly 2 octaves lower. But the pride lasts all the way until dinner time when your mom tells you to quit making that face or it'll stick like that. As the sun sets, everyone disperses, heading home to swap stories and exaggerate their achievements. You should have seen it, someone says. Billy almost blew smoke out of his belly button. In a few days, a new challenger will rise, ready to set a new record, or at least invent a new myth for next year's great tobacco stunts. You limp home, slightly dizzy, secretly hoping tomorrow's event is bubblegum blowing. Your lungs could use a break. Every kid has a cough. Nobody calls it chronic. It's just how things are. The family cure for everything is a hot toddy and another cigarette. If you cough blood, Grandma says you're just growing strong. In the world of the 1910s, coughing is less a sign of illness and more of a regional dialect. You don't say hello, you say ahem. In your house, the dinner conversation is a chorus of hacking, sniffling, and the gentle percussion of someone thumping their own chest trying to get the dust out. It's almost comforting. You know, everyone's okay as long as they're still coughing. Silence is what really worries you. Mornings begin with a group clearing of the throats. Your little brother sounds like a broken calliope. Your sister could out a hound dog. And your dad's hack echoes through the walls, sending dust motes spiraling from the rafters. When your neighbor, Old Man Jenkins, coughs, the birds outside scatter. Possibly because he follows it with a triumphant, "Still got it." He's a local legend. No one calls the doctor unless things get really dramatic, like coughing so hard you knock over the stove dramatic. Instead, you're handed a mug of hot toddy, part tea, part mystery syrup, part whatever whiskey was left in the cabinet, told to rest, and encouraged to just take it easy with a nice, relaxing cigarette. The warmth supposedly soothes the throat, and according to Grandma, keeps the humors flowing. You don't know what humor is, but you're pretty sure you've coughed up a few. The range of coughs is impressive. There's the schoolyard squeaker, the deep-down rumble, and the infamous silent but deadly, which means you're not actually coughing. You're just holding it in so you don't get sent outside for disturbing the lesson. Kids swap stories at recess about who coughed up what. Billy claims he hacked up something that looked like a raisin. Sally says she once coughed so hard she saw stars. There's always someone with a wheeze that could soundtrack a horror film. It's not just accepted, it's expected. If you walk into a room and everyone's breathing quietly, you check for ghosts. The teacher has a whistle, not for keeping order, but for signaling when it's time for everyone to stop coughing and start arithmetic. During spelling tests, the room rattles with so many hacks. You'd think there's a secret Morse code message being tapped out about the evils of penmanship. And yet, no one is particularly worried. The belief is simple. Coughing is a sign of vigor. If you can cough hard, you can work hard. Strong lungs, says Grandpa, nodding as you nearly collapse from a coughing fit. Run in the family. If you get a fever, there's Vicks, mustard plasters, and naturally another cigarette to open things up. The real fear is not coughing. That's when the family circles the bed, whispering about cures involving onions, goose grease, and cold compresses you hope are optional. Wheezing, meanwhile, becomes a competitive sport. Who can make the loudest rattle? Who can sustain it the longest? Bonus points if you can carry a tune or make the dog howl. The family dog, for what it's worth, has developed his own gentle hack, usually reserved for begging at the table or expressing existential dread during thunderstorms. He fits right in. If on occasion someone coughs blood, the response is universal, half concern, half pride. You're just clearing out the bad stuff, says Grandma. Means you're tough. She's outlived most of her siblings and credits it entirely to her twice-daily cigarette and an unwavering faith in the healing power of stubbornness. As you drift off to sleep, the household coughs and wheezes gently around you. It's the lullaby of a generation, part melody, part medical. In the 1910s, to cough is to live, and to live is to cough. You just hope tomorrow's whiz sounds a little more melodic, or at least impresses someone at school. Your teacher keeps a spa tune under her desk. If you're really good at arithmetic, she'll reward you with a fresh cigarette. Class presentations are frequently interrupted by someone hacking up a lung. Show and tell often include someone's new lighter. The schoolhouse is a microcosm of American life in the 1910s. If American life was defined by chalk dust, hand-rolled smokes, and the unspoken code of the break-time ashtray, you find your desk by the window, scrape your initials into the wood, and get your pencil ready. That is, if you can find a pencil that hasn't already been swapped for rolling papers or a box of matches. As the bell rings, the room settles into a smoky routine. The teacher, Miss Thompson, begins the day by flicking open her cigarette case and passing it around. Take one if you need to focus, she says. It's a generous offer, though you suspect it's mostly so she doesn't have to share her private stash of Turkish blends. The students accept eagerly, as if this is the only form of positive reinforcement they'll get until report cards. Lessons proceed at a leisurely pace, punctuated by the soft thud of the spa tune and the sharper sound of someone failing to hold in a cough. There are regular fresh air breaks, though fresh is relative, as the schoolyard is just as foggy as the classroom, and the outhouse is more of a smokehouse. Arithmetic is serious business. Solve enough long division problems, and you might just get a gold star and a hand-rolled prize. The ink on the paper barely dry. Miss Thompson has an eye for talent and a heart for anyone who can de-recite multiplication tables without collapsing in a fit of hacking. Science class is frankly a fire hazard. The students crowd around as Miss Thompson demonstrates how to create smoke rings using a glass beaker, a candle, and the class's combined cigarette supply. The experiment ends when the janitor bursts in, waving his arms and shouting about ventilation and fire insurance. He's ignored. He always is. English lessons are just as lively. Someone in the back reads a poem about the romance of a midnight cigarette, while the rest of the class debates whether the word phlegm is spelled with a silent G or if it's just a sound effect. Book reports are delivered in voices made raspy by a semester's worth of unfiltered camels. The best speaker gets applause and a congratulatory light. Show and tell is a weekly highlight. Last Friday, Billy brought in a genuine Cuban cigar from his uncle who works on the railroad. Sally showed off her new lighter engraved with a daisy and the promise it's windproof, waterproof, and almost teacher-proof. The teacher, impressed, let her light the class candle for story time. Occasionally, a school inspector visits and tries to enforce new rules about tobacco use, only to be met with a united front of teachers and students alike. It's for focus, Miss Thompson insists, exhaling a perfect smoke ring that floats across the inspector's hat. The inspector shrugs and quietly leaves, wiping chalk dust and ash from his coat. Sometimes between lessons, the classroom transforms into an informal clinic. If someone's cough sounds especially dramatic, Miss Thompson prescribes a warm drink and a light, smoke to open the chest. Nobody questions her wisdom. She's been teaching for 20 years and has survived 3 epidemics and at least 1 suspicious fire. At day's end, the floor is littered with pencil shavings, ash, and the scattered remnants of a dozen hand-rolled smokes. The students file out, coughing, chattering, and ready for another round of smoke rings on the playground. This is education 1910 style, a blend of discipline, improvisation, and the ever-present comforting haze of tobacco in the air. You just hope you remember your homework and your matches for tomorrow, Christmas morning. Stockings are filled with candy canes and small packs of smokes. The best birthday present is a monogram cigarette case. Forget Red Ryder BB guns. Everybody wants a Zippo. The holidays in the 1910s are nothing if not festive, and nothing says joy to the world quite like the warm glow of a family chain. Smoking around the tinsel-clad tree, you tumble down the stairs in footy pajamas. Your head still heavy with dreams of sugar plums and unsupervised matches. And what's waiting for you in the living room? A stocking bulging at the seams with peppermint peanuts, and a shiny foil-wrapped carton of Chesterfields just for you. The tag says from Santa. You suspect it's Mom, but you play www.music along. No one wants to ruin the magic. Gift giving is a carefully curated ritual. Grandpa passes out hand-rolled cigars from battered tin, the label faded and sticky with the ghosts of Christmas past. Grandma gifts you a silver-plated match safe to keep your sparks dry and your fingers clean. Your little sister squeals with delight as she opens a box of bubblegum cigarettes. Real bubblegum, but rolled in a little bit of powdered sugar and wrapped to look just like the grown-up thing. She blows a pink bubble and lights up a real one just to compare. The best presents aren't toys, they're status symbols. That fancy cigarette case engraved with your initials and a mysterious date. Maybe the day you graduated from candy cigs to the real deal is the envy of all your cousins. You snap it open with a practiced flick like you've seen in the movies and feel instantly mature. Uncle Joe gives you a pocket lighter, one of those heavy brass ones with a flip top and a tiny wheel. You spend half the day perfecting the one-handed light, burning your thumb, dropping the case, and nearly setting your Christmas sweater on fire. Nobody minds. Uncle Joe just laughs and shows you the trick again. Holiday traditions revolve around tobacco. The family photo is taken with everyone holding their favorite brand. A cloud of smoke hovering above the tinsel like a private weather system. Someone plays carols on the upright piano. The rest of the family harmonizes through a chorus of coughs, wheezes, and the occasional accidental whistle from a kid who hasn't quite mastered the art of breathing and smoking at the same time. Even the holiday meal can't escape. Ashtrays are everywhere, next to the mashed potatoes, tucked behind cranberry sauce, perched on the window sill above the pies. The meal pauses so Grandma can sneak a smoke before dessert. The uncles disappear for a fresh air break, which mostly involves everyone gathering on the porch and marveling at the neighbor's new lighter. Birthday parties are more of the same. You look forward to the ritual of opening presents in front of your friends, hoping for a box of your favorite brand, maybe even a novelty pack in a flavor you've never tried. The biggest moment comes when you unwrap a Zippo. Sleek, shiny, and guaranteed to last longer than your first attempt at blowing smoke rings. Red Ryder BB guns are nice, but a Zippo is freedom, power, and social capital, all in the palm of your soot-stained hand. When the holidays end and the guests depart in a swirl of winter wind and spent matches, you tuck your treasures away. The monogram case slides into your jacket pocket. The new carton gets stashed in your dresser drawer. Right next to last year's harmonica and a pile of birthday cards, you drift off to sleep in a room filled with a faint, sweet scent of peppermint, pine needles, and lingering tobacco smoke, dreaming of next year's loot. In the 1910s, nothing says love quite like a stocking stuffed with smokes. And who needs a toy train anyway when you've got the best lighter on the block? There are entire magazines dedicated to tobacco tips for boys. Advice columns answer burning questions like, how do I keep my pipe lit in the rain? And what do I do if my mustache catches fire? Welcome to the publishing boom of the 1910s, where no interest is too niche and every child's hobby gets its own glossy, inky spread. Forget comics or baseball weeklies. The hottest item of the corner newsstand is Junior Smoker Monthly, your go-to for all things ash, ember, and etiquette. You hand over your nickel, feeling sophisticated and only a little bit nervous that someone will catch you reading an editorial on proper puffing posture. The cover art is as inspiring as it is absurd. A rosy-shaked youth in knickers, his cigarette balanced perfectly between his teeth, giving a winning wink under the headline, How to be a Gentleman and a Smoker Before 13. Each issue promises tips, tricks, and testimonials from smoking prodigies across the nation. You flip through the pages, heart pounding with the kind of anticipation usually reserved for Christmas morning and the arrival of the new baseball cards. Inside, the advice columns are a goldmine. Worried about rain ruining your roll? Ask Uncle Smokestack, who writes a monthly essay on all-weather puffing and recommends carrying an oilskin pouch and a brave attitude. Wondering what to do when your pipe flares up mid-recital? There's a whole section called Burnt Brows and Bravery, filled with letters from kids who learn the hard way that facial hair and open flame are a dangerous mix. The Tricks of the Trade page is a favorite, offering tutorials on advanced smoke ring techniques, how to flick a match with panache, and ways to hide a carton in your sock drawer without arousing suspicion. There's even a regular comic strip, Nicotine, He Never Chokes, in which our plucky hero foils bullies, charms, teachers, and always has the perfect comeback, usually while exhaling a perfect cloud. You scan the classifieds, where kids advertise for pen pals to trade rare matches, vintage lighters, or limited edition tobacco tins. There's an earnest letter from a 12-year-old in Missouri looking for a friend who can teach him to French inhale without passing out. Sometimes the magazine even runs contests. Submit your best tobacco trick and win a year's supply of peppermint snuff. You consider entering. But the reigning champion is a 9-year-old girl from Toledo who once blew smoke rings in Morse code. The back pages are a treasure trove of advertisements. There's the sturdy boy pocket lighter, guaranteed windproof or your money back. There's Professor Puff's pipe polish, which promises to shine any pipe to a mirror finish and stash guard, a paraffin mustache protector for the ambitious young gentleman. One full-page spread boasts a mail order correspondence course in the social graces of smoking. For only 50 cents, you'll get a diploma and a lapel pin shaped like a tiny tasteful cigarette. Of course, not every article is serious. There's satire and wit plenty. Mock quizzes on, is your ashtray too cluttered, and a tongue and cheek feature on how to convince your parents it's medicinal. But the underlying message is clear. Smoking isn't just a pastime. It's a lifestyle, a club, a rite of passage. You enter with a flick of the wrist and a practiced, nonchalant exhale. As you finish the issue, You're left inspired and a little overwhelmed. There's so much to learn, so many techniques to master, so many products to try, and so many burning questions still left unanswered. You tuck the magazine into your school bag, ready to try out a new trick on tomorrow's playground. In the 1910s, if you can read, you can smoke. And thanks to the fine folks at Tobacco Tips for Boys, you'll never have to wonder how to relight your pipe or style your mustache again. The annual family photo is a lineup of squinting faces in a haze of blue smoke. The baby hold a tiny cigar. Even grandma's knitting needles smell like old gold. Picture day in the 1910s is less about capturing cherished memories and more about preserving the family's average daily nicotine intake for future generations. The preparations start early. Everyone's in their Sunday best. Grandpa in his crisp collar, Mom in her best apron, the kids in matching outfits already sporting a few mysterious burn holes. You're warned not to spill anything on yourself or your smokes before the photographer arrives. The house fills with a buzz of nervous energy and the unmistakable scent of 3 or 4 competing tobacco blends. The photographer is a serious man, mustache waxed to points, camera the size of a bread box, and a faint whiff of pipe smoke trailing him like a shadow. He sets up the tripod in front of the family's best curtains, shakes the dust off the velvet drape, and politely declines the offered cigarette. He's saving his lungs for after lunch. Everyone lines up in height order, which also happens to be roughly the order of lung capacity. Grandpa claims the seat of honor, a fat cigar clenched between his teeth, and a look that says he's been practicing this pose since Reconstruction. Grandma sits beside him, a dainty cigarette in her holder, hands never stopping their gentle knitting, needles clicking and glinting with an aroma that's equal parts lavender sach and stale ashtray. The kids jostle for position, cigarettes in hand, each trying to blow the biggest smoke ring without getting scolded for giggling. The littlest one, barely old enough to stand, wobbles in the front row, proudly brandishing a miniature cigar made of chocolate and dreams. You're not entirely sure when this became tradition, but it wouldn't be a proper portrait without a thin blue ribbon of smoke threading through the air. Eyes open, mouths closed. Unless you're puffing, the photographer instructs. A flash of powder, a burst of light, and the moment is immortalized. Half the family blinking, half with an expertly timed exhale. The baby, startled by the noise, accidentally drops his cigar and starts wailing, only to be pacified by Grandpa's gentle offer of a new match, unlit for now. After the official shot, the real fun begins. Candid poses are encouraged. Uncle Joe leans back, lights 2 at once, and challenges Aunt Margaret to a smoke waterfall. The cousins try to outdo each other by balancing cigarettes on their noses, while Mom sneaks in an extra drag behind the Christmas cactus. Even the family dog, ever loyal, curls up at everyone's feet, fur tinged with the permanent fragrance of decades' worth of family habits. The portrait session doubles as a reunion, a chance to swap stories, share new brands, and reminisce about the year Aunt Mabel set her bonnet alight. Conversation drifts from crops to politics, then back to tobacco. Remember when matches cost a penny? Do you still roll your own, or are you too fancy now? Pass me one of those Turkish blends, would you? When the plates are developed, the results are always the same. A warm, blurry gathering of loved ones, barely visible through an affectionate paw of smoke. You stick the new photo on the mantel next to last year's, noting that the cloud above Grandpa's head has grown a little denser, but the smiles haven't faded. Even Grandma's knitting, displayed in the frame, looks like it's been gently aged in a humidor. As the house settles down and the smoke thins, you look around at the contented faces, the echo of laughter, and the gentle clink of a lighter closing in these smoky family portraits. You see not just a record of faces, but a living, breathing testament to a shared history, a family bonded by love, tradition, and a truly remarkable tolerance for blue haze. And somewhere in the background, the baby's tiny cigar smolders. Future generations already getting the hang of it. Coaches encourage the baseball team to take the edge off before a game. The fastest runner is also the heaviest smoker. You might not win the race, but you'll look very relaxed finishing it. Sports in the 1910s are a heady mix of sweat, dust, and sweet, sweet tobacco. The local field is a patchwork of bald grass, worn bases, and half-buried cigarette, but it's that mark where last week's right fielder gave up and sat down for a smoke. The dugout smells like liniment, old leather, and 1,000 unfiltered lucky strikes. The pre-game huddle isn't for pep talks. It's for swapping brands and practicing French inhales. Coach Ollie paces the sideline, one hand gripping a clipboard, the other expertly twirling a half-burnt cigarette. Nervous? He asks, looking at you and your teammates. Light up. The best players always smoke before they swing. You're pretty sure he means physically, not just metaphorically. Nobody questions it. If the coach says smoking builds character and strong lungs, you believe him. Before the first pitch, you watch as the shortstop flicks his lighter, takes a slow drag, and blows a perfect smoke ring through the catcher's mitt. That's my secret to stealing second base. He winks. Smoke blinds the other team. You nod in awe. Try not to choke on your own cigarette as you stretch. The outfielders are comparing matchbook collections, each one boasting a souvenir from last month's championship or a rare advertising slogan. Smoke a lucky play like a pro. The game begins, and within minutes the field is alive with movement and smoke trails. The pitcher has mastered the art of holding a cigarette in the corner of his mouth without dropping ash on his uniform. It's a skill that gets him more compliments than his actual curveball. The infielders, they puff between pitches, exhaling clouds that drift lazily across the diamond, and occasionally confuse a wandering butterfly into thinking it's a signal to leave town. Running the bases becomes a test of multitasking. You sprint for third, lungs burning with the combined effort of athletic ambition and last night's Chesterfields. You may not be the fastest, but you are the most composed, arms pumping, breath steady, mind focused on two things: not tripping over your own shoelaces and keeping the cigarette lit all the way home. At the plate, you spit out a gum wrapper, wipe your brow, and listen as the coach offers more advice. Don't swing until you've taken a proper drag. It helps your timing. The spectators in the stands aren't any different. Parents, siblings, and friends all light up as they cheer, waving scorecards with one hand and cigarettes with the other. The local paper runs an ad every Sunday. Nothing goes better with a home run than a Camel. The town's pride and joy. Tommy the Smokestack Jenkins credits his record-breaking dash with a little extra inspiration and a menthol breeze. Halheim, or as it's locally known, Smoke Break, is less about hydration and more about seeing who can blow the biggest smoke ring and who's mastered the one-handed light. Stories are swapped about athletes who smoke their way to victory. Legends like Puff and Pete or Ashtray Annie, whose medals hang right next to their engraved lighters. The game ends with high fives, laughter, and everyone stretching out on the grass for a post-game cool-down. The winning team poses for a photo, cigarettes glowing against the sunset. The losers light up anyway. After all, you may not have won the game, but at least you're not out of smokes. As you walk home, legs tired and lungs well seasoned, you realize that in the 1910s, victory on the field isn't just about points. It's about endurance, friendship, and the faint but ever-present haze of camaraderie drifting in the summer air. Tomorrow, practice starts at dawn, and you'd better not forget your lighter. Kids swap stories about how smoking cures colds, asthma, boredom, and not wanting to do chores. It's doctor's orders, you say. And who can argue with a kid waving a prescription pad? In the 1910s, every playground is alive with the crackle of tall tales and secondhand medical advice. At recess, the older kids stand in a smoky semicircle, swapping not just cigarettes, but the latest and greatest health rumors. Billy, who claims his uncle is a pharmacist, swears that menthols clear your sinuses better than chicken soup. Sally, whose dad is a dentist, insists chewing tobacco is practically the same as brushing your teeth. Just don't swallow. You sit on the swing set listening in, waiting for your moment to join the conversation. Everyone has a story. Johnny says his doctor prescribed him 2 Camels a day and a good night's sleep for his chronic sniffling. Emily swears that her bronchitis vanished after she started splitting a lucky strike with her older sister before dinner. There's no way to prove or disprove these claims. And that's the point. The legend grows with every retelling. You need to get out of chores. Try the classic line. But Mom, Dr. Wadsworth says I need to rest and smoke for my nerves. If you can fake a convincing cough and hold up a scribbled note from the doctor, you're golden. No parent wants to argue with a piece of paper covered in official-looking squiggles and the vague thread of worsening symptoms. Your mom sighs, hands you a broom, and says, well, if you have to sweep, at least take a smoke break halfway through. Some excuses are downright creative. Dad says pipe smoke keeps away the flies, your friend claims, waving a corncob pipe with all the authority of a junior entomologist. Besides, it's good for my concentration. The truth is, no one's entirely sure where medical advice ends and family myth begins. If Grandpa says smoking kept him alive through the blizzard of 8, who are you to doubt? He's still here, wheezing his way through the morning crossword and surviving on black coffee, bacon, and an impressive variety of rolling papers. At school, kids pass around pamphlets they found in the doctor's office, promising all sorts of miraculous benefits. Smoke Old Gold for a golden throat. Doctors prefer lucky strikes. So should you. There's even a rumor going around that the school nurse keeps a pack of Chesterfields in her desk for emergencies, meaning whenever the principal is in a bad mood, even teachers get in on the act. Mrs. Perkins, who runs the after-school reading club, lights up before every story time. It helps me get through Treasure Island, she claims, exhaling a literary cloud. If you ask nicely, she'll explain that a good pipe makes for a sharper mind, then hand you a crossword and a box of matches. Science class isn't much better. See how the smoke rises? That's convection. Also, it's soothing for my back pain. Medical authority is everywhere and nowhere. There are always new testimonials. The neighbor kid who claims smoking kept away last year's flu. The kid down the street who swears his allergies vanished after switching brands. You nod, taking mental notes. Every ailment, real or imagined, has a matching cigarette. Restless leg syndrome, roll your own. Tummy aches, menthols only, boredom, try a new brand. And if that doesn't work, invent one. By dinner, the house is full of laughter, dubious science, and that unmistakable haze of healthful optimism. Don't forget your evening smoke, your dad says. Good for digestion. You smile, reach for your favorite brand, and marvel at how easy it is to live healthy when you've got the right medical excuse in the 1910s. If you can say it with a straight face and a puff of smoke, it must be true. After all, doctor's orders are doctor's orders. Gym class includes holding your breath after taking a drag. If you pass out, you get a note to go home early and watch your favorite radio show. Sponsored by Lucky Strike. Physical education in the 1910s isn't about jumping jacks or push-ups. It's about stamina, poise, and the ability to outlast your classmates in the all-important lung capacity challenge. Coach Iron Lungs Mulligan gathers everyone on the schoolyard, clipboard in one hand, cigarette in the other, ready to start the day's most important test. Not who can run the fastest, but who can take the deepest drag and hold it without turning blue. The whistle blows and the line forms. Each student receives a cigarette, generously donated by the local tobacconist, who claims it's for community spirit. You nod to the kid next to you, steeling your nerves for the peer pressure and the possibility of glory. Ready? 3, 2, 1, coach shouts. Everyone lights up. The playground fills with smoke and anticipation. You take a deep drag, feeling your lungs expand like overfilled bellows. The air is thick and warm. It's a test of mind over matter, willpower over weaves. You clench your jaw, stare at the horizon, and try to ignore the sound of Billy already gasping in the third row. Some kids are pros. They can hold their breath so long you'd think they were preparing for a deep-sea expedition. Others go red in the face, eyes watering, wobbling on their feet. If someone faints, it's met with a mix of concern and admiration. He's got spirit, coach says, scribbling a note for early dismissal and a reminder practice with a menthol next time. Winners of the Lung Capacity Challenge are local legends. Their names are whispered with awe. Their lung power envied for generations. The record holder Sally Iron Wind Hopkins once held her breath for so long that the teacher wondered if she should call a doctor or just a sponsor. For her efforts, Sally earned a week off gym and a guest spot on the school's favorite radio program, Lucky Strike. Laugh Hour. Nobody remembers what jokes she told, but everyone remembers how she lit up, smiled, and exhaled a perfect smoke ring into the studio microphone. Of course, lung capacity isn't just about holding your breath. There are relay races with a twist. Run to the flagpole and back. But your cigarette has to stay lit the whole way. The fastest time with the least ash lost wins. If you drop your cigarette, you're disqualified and expected to practice at home with Dad. Push-ups, sit-ups, no thank you. The real fitness test is seeing who can blow the biggest cloud after gym class and not cough up breakfast. You train at home practicing in front of the mirror, hoping to one day impress both the coach and the school nurse, who also smokes, of course, for professional reasons. The gym teacher, meanwhile, demonstrates proper inhaling technique, making sure to include a short lesson on keeping your elbows high and your nerves steady. Nobody questions the curriculum. If anyone tries to introduce jump rope or medicine balls, coach shakes his head. What's the point if you don't have the lungs for it? You nod in agreement, not wanting to seem out of touch with the latest health advice. At the end of the period, the class sits in a circle, comparing coughs and sharing tips. Some kids swear by filtered smokes. Others insist hand-rolled is the way to go. If you're especially clever, you bring in a new brand to test, hoping for extra credit and a moment in the smoky Sunday. When the final bell rings, you head home proud, lungs stretched, head spinning, gym note in hand. Maybe you passed out, but you did it for the radio show. In the 1910s, fitness isn't about brawn. It's about breath and a perfectly timed exhale. A few busybodies start to complain that kids are smoking too much. These are the first health nuts, mocked mercilessly in the schoolyard for wanting to ruin everyone's fun. You hear the whispers first behind the soda shop near the playground in the dusty corners of the schoolhouse. Some kid's mom went to the city and came back with radical new ideas. Smoking stunts your growth. Nicotine makes your hair fall out. Secondhand smoke will kill the cat. The rumors swirl, each one more absurd than the last. Next, they'll be telling you that chewing tobacco doesn't actually build strong teeth. The pioneers of this anti-smoking movement aren't cool older kids with slick hair and leather jackets. No, these are the earnest straight-back types who bring apples for the teacher and wear galoshes even when it's dry. Their pockets are full of cough drops, not matches, and their lunchboxes hold carrot sticks instead of cigarette sandwiches. That's just white bread with a Lucky Strike tucked inside for later. It starts small. One day at recess, a health nut pipes up, waving a pamphlet she picked up at the Women's Temperance League meeting. 10 Reasons Why Tobacco is Poison. It's printed in ominous black letters with cartoon drawings of sickly children coughing into their handkerchiefs. She reads the first reason tobacco clouds the mind, and immediately the crowd bursts out laughing. Maybe that's why Billy failed his spelling test. Someone snickers and Billy Midpuff just grins and shrugs. The more these early activists protest, the more the rest of the kids dig in their heels. Someone draws a mustache on the anti-smoking poster in the classroom, giving the sickly cartoon child a pipe and a sly wink. The class clown starts carrying around an apple, dramatically biting into it every time someone lights up just to balance the health aura. It quickly becomes a running joke. Anytime someone coughs, a friend shouts, "Better see the health nut," to general giggles, but the movement won't be snuffed out so easily. The school principal, Mr. Willoughby, who looks like he's never smiled in his life, reads a letter at assembly from concerned citizens. He warns about the dangers of excessive tobacco use among our youth. Half the school falls asleep during his speech. The other half sneak out for a smoke behind the woodpile. Outside school, the health nuts get even bolder. The local pharmacy starts selling peppermint sticks labeled lung savers. At Sunday school, the preacher launches into a dramatic sermon about how your body is a temple, not a chimney. Some kids go home and find their parents hiding cigarettes on the top shelf. Or worse, switching to those bland, oddless herbal blends. Tastes like regret, Dad says before sneaking out to the porch for the real thing. Resistance only seems to fuel creativity. Kids invent new games like smoke ring dodgeball and cough counter, and make up stories about how smoking actually helps you run faster, jump higher, and survive spelling tests with your dignity intact. If the health nut in your class tries to share a carrot, you wave it away and offer a stick of gum instead. Nicotine flavor for healthy, growing lungs. But slowly, imperceptibly, change creeps in. Someone's uncle gets a bad cough that doesn't go away. The kid who always wins the lung capacity contest starts bringing honey loners to school. A few older brothers home from the warn their siblings maybe go easy on the camels. But the real shift is quiet. Almost background noise. Fewer butts in the ashtrays. More kids sneaking apples. Fewer bragging about coughing up the biggest piece of flag this side of the railroad tracks. The health nuts haven't won yet, but their legacy is growing. For now, they're still the punchline of every playground joke. But somewhere in the haze, the first breeze of change is blowing. And who knows, maybe the next generation will finally figure out how to have fun without bringing their own ashtray to the picnic. With booze off the table, adults smoke even more. The result, even more cigarettes for the kids. Prohibition means the smoke is thicker, the parties are weirder, and you learn to roll your own before you're tall enough to reach the counter. It's the 1910s, and America has decided that drinking is officially uncool, at least according to some very serious people with starch collars and a burning hatred for fun. The solution? Take away everyone's gin and whiskey. And surprise, watch tobacco become the new national pastime. Where the saloon doors once swung, now there's just the gentle click of a lighter and the soft collective sigh of people figuring out what to do with their hands. At home, your parents throw tea parties that start out with lemonade and end with everyone on the porch chain smoking and telling stories about the good old days when Uncle Fred fell into the rain barrel after one too many. Now, the wildest thing anyone does is try to see who can light a cigarette off a stovetop burner without losing their eyebrows. Grandpa claims he used to do it with a bonfire and a handful of fireworks, but no one can prove it. And the backyard fence still bears the scorch marks. For you and your friends, the prohibition of alcohol means only one thing. The adults are too busy smuggling whiskey and pickle jars to notice their kids have turned the pantry into a secret rolling station. The kitchen is stocked with flour, beans, and 4 types of rolling papers. Even your little sister can craft a cigarette faster than she can tie her shoes. You suspect this is just good time management. Neighborhood parties are a strange new breed. Without booze, adults turn up the music and debate the best way to keep the punch bowl interesting. Ginger ale with a sprig of mint and a twist of tobacco. Someone always tries to make tobacco tea, which sounds like a punishment, but gets you extra points for creativity at the next block party. It's a time of experimentation. The local grocer starts selling candy cigarettes right next to the real ones, just in case anyone under 6 wants to get in on the action. And since adults are distracted by speakeasies and home brewing operations, kids have free reign. The empty lots behind the old barn turn into after-school smoking clubs, where the entry fee is one hand-rolled smoke and the ability to keep a secret. It's not uncommon to see a group of 8-year-olds huddled around a cigar box, counting matches and whispering the rules of the latest game. No telling, no coughing. And if you burn your tongue, you owe everyone a piece of bubble gum. Rolling your own becomes an essential life skill, right up there with arithmetic and not getting caught. Billy brags he can roll one-handed while holding his lunch and a conversation. Sally shows off her signature twist, perfect for keeping the tobacco from spilling out during recess. You take notes, hoping to one day be as efficient as your older cousins, who claim to have invented the double-decker. 2 cigarettes at once, one tucked behind each ear for emergencies. The smoke is thicker, yes, but so is the sense of rebellion. You know, the adults aren't fooled. Every ashtray tells the story, but nobody says a word. After all, it's better than what they could be doing. Or so the story goes. Sometimes an older sibling tries to sneak a bottle of grape juice out back, but it's always confiscated by Aunt Martha, who declares, "Not in this house," then lights up and takes her place at the canis table. Prohibition may have dried up the liquor cabinets, but it turned every kitchen, porch, and schoolyard into a minor league tobacco den. The only real loser is the family cat who spends most of his time hiding in the coal bin, waiting for the day America decides to ban smoking, too. Until then, you keep rolling, keep puffing, and keep practicing your secret handshake. 2 puffs, tap your shoe, and never rat out the source. Because in the 1910s, if you can't toast the new year, you might as well fog it up. Some kids, tired of the constant hacking attempt to quit, they go cold turkey, which lasts exactly 6 hours until recess. Support groups don't exist. Instead, your friend Billy just smokes for you and gives you a pep talk. It's a bold move in the 1910s, deciding to give up smoking before it's even considered uncool. The symptoms hit fast. The fidgety fingers, the urge to chew anything not nailed down, the overwhelming sin of everyone else lighting up just a few feet away. You announce your intentions over breakfast, and your family reacts as if you've decided to become a circus performer. "Why quit?" Grandpa asks, holding his pipe with a trembling hand. "Doctors say it's good for the Constitution." Your little sister just shrugs and asks if she can have your leftover matches. At school, you try to stay strong. You keep your hands busy, twirling pencils, doodling in the margins, pretending to be enthralled by math. But everywhere you look, someone's rolling, lighting, or practicing smoke rings for gym class. The sound of a match striking is suddenly deafening. The aroma, part comforting, part infuriating, clings to your clothes, your hair, your very soul. You last until morning recess, pacing like a detective on a cold case. That's when Billy sidles up, offers you a drag, and says, "You know, quitting isn't for everyone. Some of us just aren't built for clean lungs." It turns out quitting isn't a solo sport. There's no patch or gum. The closest thing to a withdrawal support group is Billy and his smuggled carton providing moral support by demonstrating just how much you're missing out on. "See this?" he says, expertly exhaling a cloud. "That's the taste of freedom." The others nod sagely, as if he's reciting poetry instead of advertising for old goals. The teachers don't help. Miss Thompson, pausing mid-lesson to light up, catches your eye and raises an eyebrow. "Trying to quit?" she asks with a tone halfway between pity and amusement. "Just don't let it affect your spelling." You half expect her to assign an essay on the virtues of a good pipe. After school, your friends stage an intervention, which is mostly them sitting around the swing set, taking turns, listing reasons why quitting is frankly un-American. "Think of your nerves," Sally urges. Blowing smoke rings in your direction. "What are you going to do when winter comes and you can't warm up with the smoke?" Billy adds. "And what about tradition? Your mom would be heartbroken if you stopped. Who's going to help her test the matches?" Still, you stick with it for a while. You nibble on licorice, neuron pencils, try deep breathing exercises, which ironically make you cough even more. You even start reading the health nut pamphlets just to see what the fuss is about. Fresh air doesn't taste like much, but at least it doesn't make your eyes water. But temptation is everywhere. At dinner, Dad lights up and the smell is so familiar you almost cave. Your resolve falters again during bedtime stories when Grandpa's pipe smoke curls around a room like a hypnotist spiral. You tell yourself you're strong. You count the hours. You make it until morning barely. The final straw is lunch the next day when you open your lunch pail and find a note from your older brother. Don't forget, Real winners finish their smokes. That's all it takes. At recess, you rejoin the crowd, take a drag, and admit defeat. Billy claps you on the back. See, I told you nobody quits for long. Not in this family. Trying to quit, you realize, is just another rite of passage, like learning to tie your shoes or blow the perfect smoke ring. And tomorrow you might try again. But tonight you breathe easy, soothed by the familiar haze, and decide that maybe, just maybe, you'll leave quitting to the next generation. By the time you're 16, you have the lungs of a coal miner and the wisdom of a lifelong customer. Tobacco companies send you holiday cards. You've been a loyal consumer for longer than you've known how to spell carcinogen. You're barely out of short pants, but you're already on a first-name basis with the clerk at the corner store. You know all the brands by flavor, label color, and which one leaves the least evidence on your school uniform. When you stroll in, the bell above the door rings, and the old lady behind the counter doesn't even bother asking for your age anymore. She just waves you to the new shipment and asks, the usual, or are you feeling adventurous today? Your loyalty hasn't gone unnoticed. Somewhere in a walnut paneled office, a tobacco company executive is flipping through customer files, pausing at yours, and smiling with corporate pride. Every holiday season, a small envelope arrives at your house. Fancy script, a subtle whiff of menthol, and a card wishing you season's greetings from your friends at Chesterfield. Sometimes there's a coupon. Sometimes there's a collectible trading card. Always there's the unspoken message. We've been together for a long time. Let's not ruin it by talking about the Surgeon General. With your reputation, you're not just a customer, you're a mentor. Younger kids seek your advice on rolling, lighting, and how to handle a teacher who catches you sneaking a smoke behind the gym. You're the one with the pocket lighter that never runs out, the secret stash under the floorboard, and the calm, raspy voice that says, don't try menthols until you can handle the regular stuff. You've seen fads come and go, but tobacco's grip is eternal. You remember your first cigarette? Awkward, thrilling, a little bit dizzying. Now you can light one in a rainstorm, keep it going through a sandlot game, and juggle 3 brands at a family picnic. At 16, you've mastered the art of looking nonchalant while buying a carton, slipping it into your satchel like it's a library book, a church. You volunteer to help with the collection just for the chance to pass the donation ashtray. At weddings and funerals, you're always the one to start the smoke circle, drawing old and young together in a cloud of ritual and nostalgia. Your doctor's office smells like your bedroom. Still smoking? He asks before handing you a prescription for whatever keeps the nerves down. You leave with a lollipop, a cough syrup bottle, and the warm feeling that modern medicine is firmly on your side. There are no lectures, only compliments about how well you filled out since you started your after-dinner cigar habit. At work, your boss is more interested in your ashtray etiquette than your typing speed. Breaks are spent leaning against the loading dock, swapping stories, and sharing brands with coworkers. Your supervisor gives you a raise and a carton as a bonus for initiative. He says the annual staff party sponsored by Lucky Strike with a raffle for the Employee of the Year's very own engraved lighter. You start thinking about the future. Maybe you'll settle down, raise a family, pass on your hard-earned wisdom. Maybe you'll start a savings account just for lighters and matches. At night, you lie in bed counting ceiling stains, listening to the comforting hum of distant coughs drifting in through the window. You wonder if your own kids will start as young as you did, or if someday the world will turn upside down and everyone will quit cold turkey. But for now, you light one last cigarette, stare at the holiday card from your favorite brand, and feel strangely content. You're not just a customer. You're part of a grand American tradition running on smoke, loyalty, and the world's most committed marketing department. Sleep comes easy, and so does tomorrow's first puff. Science, circa 1910, is a wild place. There are pamphlets from trusted institutions explaining that smoking opens up the lungs and purifies the blood, which is technically true if you consider carbon monoxide a kind of spa treatment. Parents nod approvingly as you read the latest science news. Smoke 3 a day and you'll never catch a chill. Modern nutritionists weep quietly in the future. Your family's bookshelf is a treasure trove of medical marvels and health handbooks. Next to the battered Bible and the Sears catalog, you'll find a modern child's guide to healthful habits, funded naturally by a tobacco conglomerate with a smiling doctor. On every page, every chapter is a revelation. Want a stronger immune system? Smoke after every meal. Feel a cold coming on? Try a menthol for that brisk, alpine freshness. The illustrations feature cherubic children in sailor suits skipping rope with a cigarette clenched between their teeth. Cheeks rosy with what the caption insists is vigorous health. It doesn't stop there. Newspapers run headlines like doctors recommend smoking for improved vitality and the secret ingredient to a long, happy life, a good pipe. You cut out your favorites and pin them above your bed, just in case you need ammunition for the next time your aunt lectures you about vegetables. Who needs kale when you've got vitamin-rich magic of Lucky Strike? In school, your science teacher, Mr. Dobbins, is eager to keep you up to date with the latest research. He begins every lesson by lighting up and blowing a smoke ring toward the periodic table. Class, today we're talking about oxygen and why you don't need as much as people think. He holds up a well-th pamphlet, The Healthful Smoker, a study in longevity. According to its graphs, the world's healthiest people are all over 90. And coincidentally, all depicted with pipes, cigars, or an ever-present cigarette. Science fairs are less about baking soda volcanoes and more about who can demonstrate the cleanest burn. Sally wins a blue ribbon for her experiment, tar, nature's way of coating your lungs. While Billy gets honorable mention for his presentation on the ashtray ecosystem supporting microbial diversity. Since 1906, you're working on a hypothesis about the mood-lifting effects of lighting 2 cigarettes at once, but you keep running out of samples. At home, mealtime is a symposium of health advice. Dad cites the latest medical journal as he passes the mashed potatoes. Doctors say pipe smoke keeps away winter flu. Grandma sips her coffee, waving an article from the Ladies' Home Companion. Cigarettes for the nerves, cigars for digestion. It's all very scientific. Even your little brother chimes in. Teacher says smoke makes your voice deeper. The dog just sighs and curls up under the table, head resting on a discarded pamphlet. Occasionally, someone questions the wisdom of it all. A passing preacher, a suspicious neighbor, a cousin home from college who's taken a class on modern hygiene. But the science of the day is on your side. The tobacco company even sends free pamphlets to your school for educational purposes. There are charts, diagrams, and testimonials from athletes, politicians, and most importantly, cartoon frogs who never get colds. The best part, if you ever get in trouble for lighting up indoors, you can always point to the poster above the coat rack. A healthy child is a happy smoker. No further questions. At bedtime, you brush your teeth. Sort of. Read another chapter from the modern child's guide to healthful habits and drift off secure in the knowledge that you're doing everything right. At least according to the latest science. Your dreams are filled with chemical symbols, swirling smoke, and the smug satisfaction of knowing that in 1910 smoking isn't just allowed, it's practically a vitamin. And with science like that, who could possibly argue? Forget everything you know about sweet old ladies. In the 1910s, Grandma doesn't bake cookies. She bakes herself in a cloud of smoke. Her knitting basket's half yarn, half chewing tobacco, and her bedtime stories all involve someone getting a cigarette for good behavior. You lose every smoking contest at Thanksgiving. The cat has given up hope. Grandma's kitchen is a sensory wonderland. The air always thick with the aroma of percolated coffee, burnt toast, and the unmistakable perfume of old gold and loose-leaf chew. You shuffle in every morning, hoping for a cinnamon roll, but all you get is a wry smile and a pat on the back sticky with tobacco resin. Breakfast is for the weak, Grandma rasps, expertly lighting her morning cigar with one hand while untangling a ski of wool with the other. Real champions start their day with a good chew and a tall glass of black coffee. She tells you stories while she knits. Tales of her wild youth working the textile mills, where breaks were measured not in minutes, but in cigarettes finished before the foreman caught you. You think you kids are tough? She scoffs, puffing out a smoke ring that circles the chandelier. Try threading a loom with one eye closed and a pipe in your mouth. Sunday afternoons, a family tradition. Everyone gathers around the kitchen table, the ashtrays already overflowing, and the first event is always the great-grandma challenge. Who can keep a cigar lit the longest while helping to shell peas? You give it your best shot, but by the time you finish peeling your second pod, Grandma is on her third smoke, telling you that her personal best was a full pack of Camels during the blizzard of 6 kept the pipes from freezing too, she claims. Nobody doubts her. When visitors drop by, the living room transforms into a den of equal parts hospitality and haze. Grandma insists everyone light up before settling in. She hands out pipes, cigars, and the occasional pinch of snuff. If you're polite, she might show you her famous trick, lighting a match with her thumbnail and firing up 2 cigarettes at once. One for herself and one for luck. The unspoken rule: never try to out-smoke her unless you want a lesson in humility and lung capacity. At bedtime, instead of cookies and milk, Grandma offers a little something for your nerves. A gentle tap on your shoulder and a small hand-rolled cigarette. Her lullabies are more warnings than comfort. Once knew a boy who didn't finish his after smoke. She cruns. Had nightmares for weeks. You're not sure if it's a folk tale or a public health announcement, but you light up anyway, if only for peace of mind. The holidays are when Grandma truly shines. At Thanksgiving, she leads the annual family smoking contest, refereeing from a rocking chair and doing out stern advice. Keep the ash even. Don't rush. And if you drop your butt, you're out. Every year, she wins. Arms raised in victory as the cat slinks away, tail flicking in resignation. You count yourself lucky to finish in the top 3. Your dignity and your eyebrows mostly intact. She's the keeper of family history, the backbone of holiday feasts, and the undisputed champion of household smoke density. Your friends come over just to marvel at her skills. She teaches you how to store matches in your shoes, dry tobacco leaves on the radiator, and roll the perfect smoke, even in a thunderstorm. By the end of the day, you realize Grandma isn't just the heart of the home. She's its smokiest, most unstoppable force. You tuck yourself into bed, lungs tingling, mind swirling with her stories, and dream of the day you might finally beat her, though you secretly know you never will. You take your first solo train ride, and every carriage is a rolling fog bank. The conductor hands out matches with the tickets, and kids collect butts off the floor like they're Pokemon cards. You stare out the window dreaming of far-off places anywhere you can find a slightly fresher breath of air, or at least a brand that doesn't taste like disappointment. The trip starts with a jolt and a long, slow whistle. As the old steam engine heaves itself out of the station, you settle into your seat, feet barely touching the floor, suitcase wedged awkwardly under your knees. The upholstery is a pattern of paisleys and burn holes, each one a memorial to someone's poorly timed ash. There's a brass rack above your head, full of battered hats, and here and there, a forgotten pack of Chesterfields left behind by a hurried traveler. You wonder if lost property ever includes lighters. No sooner has the train started moving than the air thickens. Smoke rises in visible layers, mild near the windows, nearly opaque in the center aisle. The gentleman across from you tips his hat, lights a cigar, and begins telling you about the time he rode this very line during the great blizzard when the only thing keeping the passengers alive was a steady ration of Camels and strong coffee. Every carriage is its own social ecosystem. In the family car, parents pass out chewing tobacco to restless toddlers, hoping it will buy a few minutes of peace before nap time. In the dining car, the waiter delivers scrambled eggs and a pack of Pall Malls on a silver tray. If you order juice, they offer to stir in a little whiskey for the nerves, but only if you promise to put out your pipe first. The best part, though, is the camaraderie among the passengers. The kid 2 rows ahead is famous for collecting the rarest butts, brands from cities you've only read about, some with colored tips or foreign writing. He shows off his collection with the pride of a stamp collector. You trade him 3 local Lucky Strikes for 1 mysterious French Gauloise. Wondering what sun filtre actually means? There's a whole unspoken trading economy here. Matches, lighters, stories, and even a half-melted stick of peppermint that's seen better days. The conductor, resplendent in brass buttons and a vest that's seen more smoke than sunlight, makes his rounds. He checks tickets, distributes fresh matchbooks, and gently scolds anyone flicking ash out the window. "We're not animals," he says as a passenger flicks a stub into the aisle for the 3rd time. The train rocks, a lullaby of wheels on rails, the scent of tobacco blending with steam and faint hints of coal. As the hours roll by, you find yourself daydreaming about faraway lands, places where fresh air is more than a memory, and the word ventilation means something besides a cracked window. You stare at the blurry green countryside zipping past, lost in reverie, while the old lady behind you tells a story about her first train ride. When the porters gave out cigars to every passenger under the age of 10 for bravery, snacks come around, and the porter asks, "Cigarette with your lemonade?" You nod, why not? It's not as if anyone on this train is worried about their daily recommended intake of oxygen. By the time the sun starts to set, you've sampled 5 brands, learned how to strike a match on your shoe, and traded half your lunch for a lighter shaped like a miniature train. As the train pulls into your stop, you gather your things, cough once for good measure, and step onto the platform, feeling strangely older and a little more worldly. The world outside seems brighter, the air crisper, though you know it won't last long before you're back in another rolling fog bank, searching for rare butts and ever fresher air, all aboard the Nicotine Express. Next stop, anywhere you can breathe. Coughing isn't a symptom, it's a language. There's the polite morning hack, the playground with the deep-throated, "I swear I'm fine" chow. Everyone has their own style. Some kids even compete to see who can rattle the windows. The truly talented can harmonize with the whistle of the steam engine or the church bells at noon. In the world of the 1910s, coughing is as much a part of daily life as breakfast or tying your shoes. You can't step out the front door without hearing a neighbor tune up for the day. A couple of quick, sharp barks followed by the long, melodious rumble that echoes down the street and sets the tone for everyone else. It's less about clearing your throat and more about announcing your presence, your mood, and sometimes your competitive spirit. Your family has its own unique repertoire. Dad's morning routine is a crescendo, a dry, scratchy staccato followed by a single operatic hack that shakes the loose change off the hallway table. Mom prefers the more subdued, dignified approach, a gentle ahem that signals both authority and an open window somewhere. Your little brother's cough is high-pitched and insistent, the audio equivalent of a squeaky bike wheel that refuses to be oiled. Even Grandma gets in on the act. Her cough, a rich, growly basso profundo that once startled a flock of geese clean out of the neighbor's pond. At school, coughing is a competitive art form. You line up at recess and compare techniques. Billy can cough on command, while Sally can fake a cough, so convincing that the teacher sends her home with a note and a tin of throat lozen's. There's a secret league, the Hacking Harmonics, where the best and brightest gather after hours to practice echoing each. Others coughs, creating a rolling wave of sound that travels from the swing set to the school bell and back again. If you can cough in rhythm with the church bells, you're basically a celebrity. Of course, there are hazards. The playground rumor mill is full of cautionary tales. Kids who coughed so hard their shoes fell off, or the legendary triple whisk incident that supposedly cracked a window in the old schoolhouse. There's always someone who claims their cousin coughed up something that looks suspiciously like last week's homework. Still, the glory is worth it. If you can get your cough to echo off the water tower, your name will live on in infamy, or at least until the next big cold sweeps through town. The best coughers are multi-talented. They can switch from a casual social cough at the dinner table to a dramatic scene-stealing hack when it's time to get out of chores. Sorry, Ma. Can't help with the dishes. My lungs are acting up again. If your performance is good enough, you'll get an extra piece of pie and the admiration of your siblings. Practice makes perfect, and soon you can cough your way out of anything from piano lessons to math homework. Coughing isn't just noise. It's communication. It can signal distress. Help. I swallow my gum. Boredom. Is this spelling test over yet? Or triumph? Did you hear that echo? At church, the faithful compete to see who can time their cough with the final amen. While on the train, true experts blend their hacks with a whistle, creating a mobile symphony of lungs and steam. As dusk falls and the town settles into its smoky twilight, you listen to the familiar chorus drifting through the open windows. A cough here, a hack there, and somewhere in the distance, a deep, satisfied wee that could only belong to Old Man Jenkins. You drift off to sleep, soothed by the world's strangest lullaby, a symphony in hacking minor, performed by everyone you know, and perfected by you. Tomorrow you'll try for a new record, or maybe just a new harmony. The art of the cough endures. So tonight, as you drift off in your cozy, smoke-free bed with a side table full of chargers and a bottle of filtered water, take a moment to appreciate how far we've come. Sure, modern life isn't perfect. Maybe your phone battery dies at 8%. Maybe your boss schedules me eatings at 7 a.m., but at least nobody's handing out free cigarettes to your third grader for his nerves. It's honestly astounding to look back and realize that entire generations survived a childhood wrapped in a haze of secondhand smoke, questionable health advice, and medical endorsements that would make your doctor weep today. Somehow these kids dodged prohibition agents, outcoughed their grandmothers, and grew up believing a cough was just a sign you were doing it right. They built character and possibly a little bit of tar with every puff. There's something beautifully stubborn about those days, the way people just carried on through the smog and the nonsense, making up their own rules as they went. The resilience of a kid who could roll a cigarette with one hand while doing his arithmetic homework with the other. That's history's version of multitasking, and it's at least a little inspiring, if not entirely advisable. So, as you snuggle deeper into your fresh sheets, lungs unburdened by cold dust and lucky strikes, maybe send a silent thank you back through time to the parents who finally questioned the wisdom of doctor-approved smoking, and to the kids who grew up, wised up, and lived long enough to warn their own children. Because history may be absurd, occasionally terrifying, and definitely full of bad ideas, but it's proof that people are adaptable, hopeful, and above all, completely ridiculous. Rest easy, breathe deep, and remember, you made it through another day in the present, and that's a victory worth savoring. Good night.